Thanks for coming. I'm very excited to be here and very honored. And thank God I didn't have to dress like Fonzie or Bruce Lee just to be a rebel. Let me switch this up. Right. So, where? You deleted all my slides. Oh. So let me start off by saying thanks for coming on such a super chilly, cold morning. I want to first say that I'm not a rebel. And just look at me. I'm the furthest thing away from being a rebel on this planet. I'd even have a tattoo, not even a small one on my ankle. I'd even jaywalk to get here. I'm here to talk about the rebel within the creative community. Not someone who just would punch someone in the face or illegally graffiti on a wall, or I'm not a Shepard Fairey or a Kidult. I'm not as cool as them. But I do want to talk about the topic about being creative and being a rebel, because I find a really a nice correlation where I think rebel goes against convention, and creativity also goes against convention. So I found a really nice parallel between the two. And being a creative person, you always find a different way of looking at things, doing things. And being a rebel is the same thing. You always go against convention. So I think being creative inherently makes you a rebel. And I think everyone is creative. And we all have a rebel inside of us. So I'm trying something new today. And I don't have slides. I just have my trusty markers that make my chest look fat. If this goes horribly wrong, I'm going to blame Mark Bussey and his crew for making me do this. So I'm going to freestyle draw my entire talk today. And if it does go well, I take full credit. So I call myself the unintentional rebel. And I say this because I failed grade 1. Like, who the fuck fails grade 1, right? Like, so apparently because I went to school, I did my own thing, I ignored the entire class. So here we go. So, oh yeah. How do I switch over? Do you see my cursor? Oh, right here. Perfect. So this is me, full set of hair, grade 1. I was sitting there, just doing my own thing. And I would go into class and just open this bin of Lego and just build my own thing. And I kind of like just isolated myself. And I was almost like being in prison or something. Siloed myself away from the entire class. And my mom was like, "You're so stupid, you failed grade 1. And I was like, I'm like, give me a break. I didn't know. Like, I had to stay in 1 more year. And it was really embarrassing because throughout my entire childhood, I was really scared to tell people I failed grade 1. Everyone was like, couldn't figure out why I was a year older than everyone else. And I just kind of always just kind of lied about it or whatever. And then later in my life, I went to OCAD. And for those of you who are from Toronto or do know OCAD, it's the Ontario College of Art and Design. And they have this crazy building. They spent a fortune on this building. So it's this building that sits on top of an older building. Anyways, that's not part of the story. The story is that I went to OCAD, and my first class was a color class. And I found out that I was actually colorblind. But I'm not the super colorblind. Like, I do see color. I don't see just black and white. It was a shocker to me because I wanted to be an art director. And I'm like, who the hell is going to be stupid enough to hire a guy that's colorblind? And so my friends were making fun of me. They're like, ha, you're going to make black and white ads for the rest of your life. I'm like, shut up. So it was a real shocker to me. And I stayed the course, and I continued to do the thing I did and studied. And And also, and then later in life, my creative director was telling me that she was, telling me with conviction. She was like, Carson, I think you've got dyslexic hearing because everything I tell you, you do the opposite thing. So there you go. It goes back to me being an unintentional rebel. Where are my slides? So I do get my way. I get my way unintentionally. My parents wanted me to be a lawyer, wanted me to be a doctor, and I'm like, of course they do, because they're Chinese. But I wanted to be in the arts, and I did get my way. I actually did get into OCAD because I failed everything under the sun. The only thing I was good at was art, and because I'm stupid. But so the unintentional rebel inside of me, made me who I am, and so I got a job straight out of school and became an art director. And so it was my way kind of going up in the world, I guess. Although I started there as an art director, but I only got paid $22,000. But this was back in the day, so $22,000 is worth like $35,000 today. I was an art director, and I worked everything under the sun. Like I worked on a lot of things. I worked on like, cars. I've always been a car junkie. Then I also worked on Harvey's, like selling burgers, and although I don't eat meat anymore. And then I worked on Sony. I sold like TVs and 8-track 3. Remember 8-track 3 before MP3? No, silence. So I worked on all these things, and even chocolate bars. So I guess this is a chocolate bar. So I worked really, really hard. And I worked hard for the wrong direction, in the wrong direction, because they were giving me like brochures and tray liners, the little sheets of paper on top of a plastic tray when you go to Harvey's. And so I worked on brochures and stuff like that, and coupons, and occasionally maybe a TV spot, which was awesome. But there was still something missing in my life, and I felt as though I was getting boxed in completely through my title being an art director, because I had to always just delegate and not do. So, whenever my parents would ask me, what actually are you doing? And I said, oh, I do ads, but I don't shoot, I don't draw, I don't, do the photography. I get someone else to do it. But I longed to be a doer, like to do things, and I didn't want to just delegate. So I worked really hard at nighttime, just doing my own thing. Wanted to do more illustration work, and kind of just started personally, building up a portfolio of like my own work. And I just did silly drawings and wanted to maybe do something with it, And then one time I worked at an agency. I was given a campaign to work on Workopolis. So I hired Reactor Art and Design in Toronto, and I met this fellow named Bill Grigsby. You can't forget a name like that. He looked like a villain from a comic book. He seriously looks like this. He was cool. I liked him. But he also had this hat. But he owned this shop, and so all this art that I was doing on the side, I got in front of him. And we were paying him big bucks to work on this print campaign. And I asked him, like, hey, what do you think of my stuff? He goes, well, he's a stern guy, and he's also from South Virginia, so he kept saying guy, yo guy, hey guy. And he said, Carson, you're at the top of your food chain. You're an art director. You shouldn't be illustrating. You should be delegating, So I was, very gullible, and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing illustrations. I should be, just staying my course, being an art director. And, but in retrospect, I think he actually just wanted more business from me. But there was a turning point in my life when I met this fellow. And a really good-looking guy. I'm not doing any justice. I had a man crush on him. He was my creative director. His name's Glenn Hunt. He's now like the head honcho at Cossette. But at the time, when he hired me, he gave me an opportunity and saw something in me and kind of rekindled my love for illustration. during after hours, I would kind of work on my own thing, and he would see it, and he'd be like, Carson, this stuff is amazing. Why don't you bring more of this stuff into advertising? I was like, oh, wait, but Bill told me not to do it. And he really wanted me to bring it back to the work that I was doing. And under his leadership at Dentsu, Dentsu is like this big advertising agency from Japan that had an office, that still has an office in Toronto. Now it's called Dentsu Boss. And so I worked on Lexus, I worked on Toyota, I worked on Canon. And there we had won an account for Vespa. And Vespa was a small account that didn't have a lot of money, but it provided a lot of opportunity. And at the time, he gave me this project to work on a poster. And this poster was to celebrate Vespa's 60th anniversary. And it was, the concept was this cute couple sitting on top of this Vespa that was shot by Micrograph, a really good photographer in Toronto. And at the back of it was emanating from the scooter was all this imagery from, from the brand, like in the 60s about like psychedelic drugs and disco and all that cool stuff. So I was tasked to, I drew everything behind it. And it won awards, and I got a lot of praise from my peers. And that was a turning point for me because it kind of validated that, yes, I should be doing more of this stuff. And so why did I start Chairman Ting was because I wanted to create a separate identity. Let me backtrack. I think I lost a slide in here. But so later after Dentsu, I flew out to Vancouver because I got a job offer at Rethink. And Rethink was like, at the time, was my, my dream agency. I was literally on cloud 9. Like, I couldn't believe that they had hired me. So I was really happy to be here, and I read a lot about Rethink, that they really cherish, like work-life balance. And people left at 5, and I was like, oh, that's all propaganda. Who leaves at 5? Like, I'm coming from Toronto. I left like at 9 p.m. even if I had nothing to do. So all of a sudden, I had all this time on my hands, because I didn't have a lot of friends back then. I still don't, I guess. And my girlfriend, now wife, was still in Toronto. And so I had all this time in my hands, so I started doing a lot more illustration work. I got into photography. I really broke out of my mold as just being an art director. And so I started Chairman Ting because things got a little bit more serious and I was getting calls. And this coincided at a time when social media was a big thing. And all of a sudden I had time and I had an audience because I could put stuff out there and people will comment on it. That never happened before. I only showed my stuff to my pet rabbit or my girlfriend who didn't care. But I started, so I also didn't want, I started Chairman Ting because I also didn't want to secretly, for my employer at the time, Rethink, to think that I was secretly starting an agency within their agency to steal brands or anything. And it also allowed me to do other things. Like, it allowed me to do the things I wanted to do, not for money, not for award shows, but do stupid stuff that made me happy, like art videos. I wanted to, the unintentional rebel in me wanted to paint on walls, I wanted to paint on sneakers, I wanted to paint on like vinyl cubes, start installations, do stupid art videos, and stuff that would make me happy. And it opened up a whole new world for me. And because, I say this because I no longer was boxed in within the confines of my agency, my employer. I didn't have to work for just the 5 accounts that I was assigned to. Now I can work for anyone and branch out to work with whatever brands I wanted to, provided they wanted to work with me. So I wanted to talk about Kid Robot because Kid Robot, I've always been a big fan of their stuff. And they saw some of the stuff that I was doing for murals and stuff like that, so they put me on a blog and they even invited me to design a dunny. So this is, I even brought it, so this is the dunny. I'm very proud of it because I've never ever done vinyl toys before. And so it opened up a whole new world, and I was able to connect with a whole different network of people. And last year they invited me to New York to do an artist signing event. And there was four hours of just people lining in to like get our autographs and everything. That was awesome, but obviously it wasn't just with me, but I was with 2 like mega stars in the vinyl design world. So there was Nathan Gervasius, I don't know if you know him, he does Scary Girl. And then there's Andrew Bell, who does all the Android dolls, designs. So I was sitting beside these guys, and we're signing away, and it just dawned on me, like, wow, if it wasn't for me doing my other stuff on the side, I wouldn't have been here to sit with these megastars and meet with these people. So it really helped me expand my network. So it pays to have a side gig. It's an act of being a rebel, I think. And why? Why would I say this? Because in my opinion, every creative professional should have a side gig. I think a passion project. It's a key to having, being a successful creative professional. Side gigs also help defy and break out of your role, whether you're a front-end developer, whether you're a photographer or a designer. I've worked with many developers or coders who want to design. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Like, if you have that desire, go for it. Don't let your title define who you are. So I call this being the responsible rebel, and it sounds boring. Obviously, I just took out the excitement out of being a rebel. But I bring this up because I also want to talk a story about me leaving Rethink for Blast Radius. And Blast Radius offered me a job to work on the global Nike account, which was the Jordan account. Although I don't watch basketball or play basketball. Well, I'm a horrible basketball player. I can't even draw the jump man. But so it was an amazing opportunity, but I met a lot of resistance. I met a lot of resistance from my friends and even from Mark Bussey. Mark Bussey emailed me out of the blue. He's like, are you crazy? Why would you leave Rethink for Blast Radius? In defense for Blast Radius, they don't promote themselves as much as they should do because they focus most of their stuff in the US and in the rest of the world. They have big US clients, amazing opportunity, but people don't know about it. So it was a fairly obscure kind of move. I even had a friend that shall remain anonymous that worked at Blast, called me up to tell me not to go to Blast. He was like, man, don't do it. I haven't produced one thing in 2 years, blah, blah, blah. And I said, you know what, I really need to find out myself and not to spite everyone, be like, I'm going because you told me not to. But I went because I really felt like I should because after Rethink, I didn't want to be a salary man anymore. I wanted to do my own thing. So I thought this is a win-win situation. Even if it goes bad, goes sour, I still have had a chance to work on Nike. Not Nike Canada, but like Nike Global. It's a big deal. And so, and not to leave Vancouver, because I love Vancouver, in case you didn't know. But it worked in the end. Even though I got laid off in the end, they lost the account. It went to an agency called AKQA down south. But I was able to produce some of the best work I've ever done in my life. Made amazing contacts. These contacts have continued to give me business, projects to work on. So I'm very grateful for that. And I also learned a ton working in the trenches with coders and developers. So what did I learn from it? Well, I think it pays to rise against convention, popular opinions, because I had all these people tell me not to do it, and I still wanted to do it because I knew that my gut was telling me the right thing to do. So don't really listen to others, what others tell you. And then the next thing I also want to talk about is Hootsuite. So the Hootsuite wall, I've done stuff for them before when they were a grassroots kind of company in Railtown. So Hootsuite had given me a call to work on their new, all of a sudden this owl's got tentacles, sorry. But Hootsuite called us up, us as in being my good friend Mike Nolan and I, to do this wall. And this is the granddaddy wall. This is like a front lobby mural. So we were very stoked. It's a crazy building. I don't know if you've ever been in it. It houses 400 people. And it used to be the Canadian Canadian Secret Service Intelligence Agency. And so it's ominous and it's crazy and it's big. So anyway, so we sold off a concept, and the concept was based on doing West Coast, a West Coast theme with totem poles and all that kind of stuff. And Ryan Holmes, the big boss man at Hootsuite, was like, yeah, go for it, So off we went, and we bought paint, we bought all this stuff, and we were ready to do this. So we're painting late at night. We pulled two all-nighters, and maybe it was like we were high on paint fumes or something, but we thought it was a really cool idea at the time to do something completely different. So like, yeah, man, we're gonna do this black and white mural. It's gonna be so cool because we're artists and we're rebels. I'm saying rebels, I didn't actually think we were rebels. But we're gonna do something completely different, they're gonna love it. And my friend Mike was like, yeah, let's do it. So we did it, and we painted all weekend, and we were super tired. We went home to sleep, not together, separate homes. And we got a call. We got a call from Hootsuite. Of course they called, and they're like, hey, what happened to the piece that we agreed on? I was like, oh, yeah, we're artists, so we want to try something else, and blah, blah, blah. They weren't buying it. So like, okay, no problem, we're gonna go back, don't call the cops. So nobody went to jail. It was fine, they paid us. We're still friends. And it worked out fine, and in the end, we learned a big lesson is to not go rogue on your client. It's a business. So it goes back to my idea about being a responsible rebel. Don't be a rebel without a cause. You know, like in the end, you know, we learned a lot, and through our video, we had like we painted actually 3 different murals because we had to paint it over and over. And so being a responsible rebel, because I say this because I think being a rebel, there's always a time and a place to be a rebel. And I think for myself, I was a rebel at night by myself, just doing my own thing on my own projects that wouldn't affect me, that wouldn't cost me my job or cost my reputation. But it allows you to expand on the things that you want to do and not be boxed in by who you know, your job title. So the next person I want to talk about is this fellow. He's not here today. For those of you who know him, he looks exactly like this. He is Alex Beam. He's done CreativeMornings before, and I bring him up because he's a good friend of mine, and I really think he's a true rebel. And I think for those who don't know him, or do know him, it's safe to say that he's very mild-mannered, very polite, but I think he's a true rebel inside. He's a quiet rebel. And I say this because every person that I've met that's worked with him at DDB talks about this story where he's always fascinated and obsessed with these glowing balls, bouncing balls. And everyone was like, yeah, Alex, yeah, and he's always talking about these bouncing balls. Nobody could understand what he was talking about. He was very passionate. But now look at him. Like he's a founder of his own company, The Tangible Interaction. He's killing it. He's doing stuff for South by Southwest next month. He's done stuff for Red Bull, Heineken. He's even had a hand in Arcade Fire and the last Olympics, Van Ock. So he's done really, really well for himself because he had followed through his dreams and rebelled against whatever people thought he was crazy. And if I could leave you with one thing I've learned is that don't let others define who you are. Break out of your mold as a designer or photographer. And I think there is a rebel inside all of us. So step out of your comfort zone, have a side project, do something, and you might be surprised with what you might find. Was that 20 minutes, or is that?
23.
23.
Pretty good.
Okay, cool. So thank you. Thank you for having me. Oh, right. Alex Beam does have eyebrows.
Even better. I'm going to start. What's your greatest weakness, friend?
Definitely the not being able to focus. So there, I just demonstrated. I didn't plan that. So yeah, so not being able to focus.
Do you have an example?
I would work on one thing, and then I would spend maybe 5 minutes on it, and then I'd be like distracted with one thought, and then I would dive into a different project when that project was like, that project's due next morning. And I think it's a great idea to, you know, take shots of, you know, my sneakers or something. But my wife is a slave driver, so she'd be like, hey, what are you working on? I was like, nothing, research. She goes, no, bullshit, get back to work.
Do you think that you have, are you on the ADD kind of spectrum, do you think?
Yeah,
Easily distracted?
I actually think everyone has ADD, to be honest.
So do I, especially if you're creative.
Yeah.
I'm a bipper and a bopper. I'm constantly like, what am I doing? I'm over here. No, and this crap doesn't help.
No.
Who has a question? Right here.
Sorry, not so much a question, but I was actually there when you did your first mural at Hootsuite.
Oh, great.
The one before you painted over it, and I think it absolutely kicked ass. I really wish that one stayed there.
Thank you.
Do you have any photos of it?
I do. It was in.
Can you post that later, maybe on Twitter or something?
Yeah.
Post it so we can all see it?
Okay.
Give it a hashtag CMVan and we'll all watch for it.
Right.
Sweet. Oh, hello, Nicholas. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Oh, good. You look nice today.
Thank you, I'll try.
I like your glasses.
Hey, Carson, thanks so much. It was a really good talk. Quick question for you. How do you kind of juggle side project versus the world of non-solicitation and non-competes in agencies? How did you do that?
Well, I had to be very careful, obviously. At the time I was working on like Mr. Lube, I was working on BCAA. I'm not going to go and work on like Mr. Jiffy or like direct competitors. I found ways that were that didn't conflict with clients. So one of the stories I keep sharing is with Adidas, and we approached them, and we knew that at the time when I worked at Rethink, we weren't working on Nike or anything. So yeah, you have to be very careful with what you pick to work on.
But did your contract have like, the IP area, which is at anything you're working on while you're in their employment?
If I was that important, they probably made me sign that. But no, I mean, when I worked at Blast, they did make me sign something, but that was just like maybe like over a year's time. You just have to be careful with what you sign or get yourself involved into, because the next thing you know, when you're like deep into it, you can't really back out. But more importantly, you pick brands that resonate with you, and at the same time, not just pick a brand that's away from what's conflicting that you're working on. If that makes sense.
Speaking of being a rebel, I was told once by a famous designer whose name I won't say, he doesn't sign them anymore.
Oh.
He said when you're good enough, you just refuse.
I hope one day I will have that power.
Would that be great? Like,
that's a good power to have.
Chairman King, hear me roar.
Hey, just wondering, what do you do when you get yourself kind of stuck in a creative bind?
I almost always just walk away from it, because I love to procrastinate, so it comes easy. I just don't believe in sitting there and banging your head, like try to like figure things out. I like to just kind of walk away from it. It's a lazy way of doing things, but it works for me. I think your mind just needs to refresh, kind of almost like restarting your computer type of thing.
Hey Carson, my name is Jeff Q.
Hey man.
I told you to sell that sketchbook, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to kind of go into something more personal. Everybody in life, everybody goes through life damaged at some point, or gets damaged at some point, and can affect their career, their...
Like physical damage?
No, mental damage.
Okay.
Right? Some traumatic event as a child that you think really affected your choice of a career and how you deal with things. Everybody, if they look back on their life, can think of some event as a child where a teacher did something or a parent did something. And I'm not talking about your mother saying, "Oh, you failed grade 1, you're stupid," right?
Right.
Something bigger, something where something that really hurt, that changed your direction.
I can't really recall, but I mean, I definitely had a lot of moments that were, I guess, damaging, because growing up in North York, Toronto, and also in Riverdale, I was like basically the only one of like 2 Asian kids in the school, and I always got picked on because I was smaller. I was among all these bigger Greek kids, but I guess it doesn't answer your question. I don't know. I haven't had anything that really affected my work in a sense that was traumatic. So, sorry, maybe I didn't answer your question properly.
I can't wait till Jeff Q is a speaker, and then we get to ask him that question.
Hi, Carson.
Hi.
Name's Lindsay.
Hi, Lindsay.
Loved your talk.
Thank you.
Going back to what you were saying about working with your wife earlier and saying she's a slave driver, I'm sure you'll pay for that later. How do you find it working so closely with your spouse as a creative person?
It's great. I get to see her every day, which is awesome. What really works is because she's very fair and very objective, and she doesn't have a very particular taste. Like, not to take anything away from her, but she loves to pride herself as like the average person. Like she knows what the average person gets and likes. Unlike, say, like my other like more artistic friends that have a very particular taste, she's a well-rounded person where she could provide a point of view that would stick with the masses. So I find that very valuable in what I do. And she's also from a business background, so she's got her MBA, so she knows how to like work business and also money as well, which is important.
Yeah, I've heard some very different anecdotes from people who work closely with their spouse. So I was just kind of curious
Right.
how that works for you.
Yeah. So to tell you, it's great. Oh, we've got one up front. Hi, Keiko.
When you work with other people, including artists and non-creative people, how do you inspire them and how do you draw creativity out of other people?
I don't see myself as a good coach or to really a person that would inspire someone. Like I just pick with people that just with good chemistry, so it just kind of works out. And I know like whoever I'm working with, I would recognize their strengths, and then I would let them do their thing and not step on their turf, like kind of give them their space. And I don't like dictating or telling people what to do. So it just kind of organically works. So I don't know if that answers your question either. You're welcome. Mark's hiding. Long time no see.
Yeah, it's been a while. So the creative industry in Vancouver, I think it working it as well. And by the way, big ups to North York. I'm from North York as well.
Oh, nice.
Same neighborhood probably. Talk about later. I think that it just seems a lot that the industry is smaller here, for better or for worse, right? And different designers are differently talented, but I think that one thing that I've been doing in my practice is admitting what I can and can't do. And there's a lot more that I cannot do than I can do. And so I reach out, I like to reach out and work with other people who are talented with me in other ways. But with a resonance as big as Chairman Ting, as your brand is growing, right? How do you, can you talk about any of your favorite collaborations and how you've, kind of shared the, what's the word? I guess the prestige or shared in the credit for it? And
I think going back to Adidas again, I think because that opened up a lot of doors, and people, when I get new clients, when they call, they always reference, it's like, hey, the stuff that you've done through that, through Adidas, we really liked, and the reference. So I think that was one big one, and the other two other big ones would be Kid Robot, because it opened up a whole new world where I was suddenly getting people emailing me, be like, hey, can you make me a doodle and send it to me? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I've never had that before, which was awesome. And then the third one was probably with Canadian Tourism Commission to do the big Canadian flag with the icons. So that was a big one because they have a huge social media network, and whenever they talk about my stuff, it really helps push my own kind of brand. So those were the three big pushes for me. And I think the playing field has been leveled because now with social media, I think everyone can really kind of harness their audience's interaction and engagement. So yeah.
Couple more back here. I saw a hand back here earlier. Who was that?
Hey, really interesting listening to you, Carson. So you talk about being a rebel and having a side project. So how do you have that discussion with your current employer? And do you let them know, or do you want them to kind of be in the dark about it?
I always believe in just being open and honest, and I think it actually worked out for me when I worked at Rethink. They were recognizing what I was doing on the side, And Chris Staples, the big boss man at Rethink, told me in a room that I could spend the afternoons working on my own thing. And at the time, I thought, you're just saying this because, it's just us in the room. You're just telling me that. But through an all-staff meeting, he actually told everyone that Carson gets to spend his afternoons working on his own stuff if things aren't busy. And I was blown away by it. And I really, still to this day, just hold to my heart to really appreciate him being so generous with his time. And so whenever I work on stuff, I always try to bring it back to the agency. So even when I worked on the Adidas stuff, it was in Hong Kong and Shanghai. I had brought their logo, and I tried to promote their agency and just bring back the same love that he's given me. So honesty, for me, I think is the best thing you can do.
It's also a good idea if you don't want to get fired. How many of my staff are in the room? Who has another one? This side has been quiet over here. Really? Really? Okay.
There's two on this side. Oh.
Hi, Carson.
Hi there.
I was just wondering if you've ever had moral dilemmas related to your ad campaigns and how you've dealt with them.
Yes, I've definitely had moral dilemmas. So I must confess, back in Toronto, I was asked to work on goldenpalace.com. I don't know if you know Golden Palace, but it's an online gambling thing. And my creative director wanted me to work on it. I was like, oh, you know what? I don't believe in online gambling, blah, blah, blah. He was like, you know what? You could win a lot of awards with this, though. I was like, oh, okay, I'm in. So I have to confess. So that was one thing that I think I sinned. I'm not religious or anything, but so I've turned down other projects before. I can't think, none comes to mind, but that was the first one that was given to me, and I folded for that one. But yeah, I can't think of anything. Remember, Denise? Any other moral dilemma jobs that we deferred? No?
No cigarette out there?
No cigarette campaigns.
We'll do one more. Who has a killer question? Yeah, killer? Hillary Henniger, killer? He technically had his hand up before you. On a scale of 1 to 10.
Well, give it a...
I actually totally lied. I was a rebel. It's actually a very practical question.
Okay.
So I really appreciated the reminder of how important it is to have a side project. And I tend to sort of deprioritize that because I get so busy with my main gig and with just living life and all that. So I'm actually hoping for some tips on, or even to hear what is your sort of daily practice, how, maybe not now, but maybe more back when you were doing more agency work. How do you fit in a full-time job, making meals, getting laundry done, all that, practical stuff, getting some exercise, and sitting down to actually illustrate?
That's a really good question. I think you just don't sleep, and which is why I've aged so much over the years. But I think you will always find time if you do have a will. It sounds super cliche, but I think that's really it is. I do cook my own meals. I do laundry. There's a lot of life things, and I know things are going to go crazy and change a lot when we have our child in April. But you just have to find the time, because once it goes by, when you look back, even through your Instagram, it's like, holy shit, all this time has gone by and I haven't done anything. That to me is a big fear of not producing anything. So I always try to, whether it's just a doodle, even if it's just one thing, it doesn't have to be spectacular. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people, because it becomes very daunting. And it's like, oh man, I don't have time for this huge project or whatever, but you will find time, especially if you love it. And I've been struggling with a film that my wife and I have been filming this documentary for the past 1.5 years. And I haven't done anything with it. I've got all this footage sitting there, and it's every day I could see it talking to me, I gotta finish this thing. So yeah, you just have to find time. I don't know how else to say it, but you gotta stop exercising, I guess, and become fat.
Well, I wish we had more time, but that's it for Mr. Ting. Thank you, sir,
Thank you.
very, very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Here. Stay with me right here for a second. It's just a thank you card from us.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it. Stay right there.